All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started. These are Unit 3 Notes 2. Today's date is December 2nd, so go ahead and write the date at the top. And then let's write our I will be able to statement. So for I will be able to, you are looking at the content of HOA LE2. So I will be able to interpret, write, and find values in linear equations with two variables. So go ahead and take another 10 seconds to write that down. I will be able to interpret, write, and find values in linear equations with two variables. Awesome, let's take a look at our actual example. So if you look at the right, example 1 says graph the following linear equation. I've got 2x minus y equals -1. Look at my steps on the left. Step 1 says put the equation in blank blank form. So we need to make sure that this equation is in slope, intercept, form. Step A of number 1 says to solve the equation for y. So basically I need to put it in y equals mx plus b. So if I look at the right, I've got 2x minus y equals -1. I'm going to draw my line through the equal sign, separating my left and right side. I need to solve and isolate for y. So I'm going to get rid of 2x. I've got a positive 2x. The inverse is to subtract 2x on each side. 2x minus 2x is 0. I'm left with a -y equals -1 minus 2x. Negative y is still attached to an invisible -1, so I need to now divide each side by -1. -1 divided by -1 is a +1. I'm now left with y equals. Now when I look on the right, I have this entire term, -1 minus 2x, divided by -1. So I'm going to split it in two. So I'm going to make little bubbles. So I have -1 over -1. That's my first bubble. And then I also have -2 over -1. Now I know that -1 divided by -1 is a +1. And then I know that -2 divided by -1 is a +2. I'm left with an x, so I'm going to add 2x. Now I want to keep this in y equals mx plus b, so I'm just going to flip things around. So I'm going to do y equals 2x plus 1. Now I've solved for y. Take a look at step 2. Step 2 says to find the x-intercept. So for step 2, I'm then going to substitute 0 for y and solve for x. So let's go ahead and do that. So if I substitute 0 for y, I can do it in either equation. I can do it in this y equals mx plus b or in the original. Let's just do it in the original. So 2x minus y equals -1. Step 2 says to substitute 0 for y, so let's go ahead and do that. 2x minus 0 equals -1. I'm left then with 2x equals -1. I need to divide each side by 2. X then equals -1/2. So my x-intercept would be -1/2, 0. I'm going to write that down by my step 2. So my x-intercept is -1/2, 0. Now to find the y-intercept, step 3 says to substitute 0 for x, solve for y. So let's do that again. So if I substitute 0 for x, let's use the original once more. I'll use this space at the bottom. So I've got 2x minus y equals -1. And I need to substitute into the original. So I'm going to substitute 0 for x. I've got 2 times 0 minus y equals -1. 2 times 0 is 0. So now I have -y equals -1. I need to divide by -1 on both sides. I'm left with y equals +1. So then I know my y-intercept. So I'm going to go back to my steps up here and label up here. I've got 0, 1. Now step 4 says to plot and label the x and y intercept on the graph. So if I look at my graph here, I've got 1, I need to find 0, 1. So 0 is here, and then I go up to 1. I'm going to even label that as 0, 1. Go ahead and do the same. And then I'm also going to plot my x, so that's -1/2. So it's going to be right about here, -1/2 comma 0, right in the middle. And I'm also going to label that as well. All right, I'm done with step 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now step 5 says to create an input, output table. So I'm going to do so. I'm going to use the values -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. So go ahead and substitute those values in my input table. Whenever I am not given a set of inputs or a domain, use -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. So I'm going to put those numbers into my box, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Then I need to actually create this by substituting each value of x into my equation. So I have y equals 2x plus 1, so let's go ahead and do that. I don't have that much room, so let's flip over. Let's go down here. So I have y equals 2x plus 1, and I'm going to substitute each time. So I need to substitute my value of -2, so let's go ahead. Y equals 2 times the quantity -2 plus 1. I know that -2 times -2 is -4 plus 1, so then -4 plus 1 is a -3. So I'm going to enter into my values -2 comma -3. And let's do the same thing for the other. So y equals 2x plus 1. Then I'm going to substitute my value of -1, so y equals 2 times the quantity -1 plus 1. 2 times -1 is -2. -2 plus 1 is -1. Moving on. Y equals 2 times the quantity of 0 plus 1. 2 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. So 0, 1 in my input-output table. And let's keep going. I've got 2 more left to do. So y equals 2x plus 1. Y equals 2 times the quantity 1 plus 1. 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3. So then if I go up to my input output, I've got 1 here and then a +3 there. Last one, so close. Y equals 2x plus 1. So I need to substitute 2 for x. 2 times the quantity 2 plus 1. 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5. So let's go back to our input output table and put the value 5. So if we take a look, you should have -2, -3, -1, -1, 0, 1, 1, 3, and 2, 5 in your input output table. Now taking a look at my steps, step 6 says to plot and label the blank from the table onto the graph. Well, I'm going to plot and label my points from the table onto my graph. So let's go ahead and do that. Here's my graph down here. I already have my x and y intercepts. So I have -2, -3. So I'm going to go -1, 2, -2, and then down to -3. 1, 2, 3. Here's my point, -2, -3. Let's make these points really visible. And then I've got -1, comma, -1. So I'm going to go -1, 1, -1. I've got 0, 1. We've already got that plotted from before. And then I've got 1, comma 3. So 1, 1, 2, 3. And then I have 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Then if I look at my steps, it says when I'm making my points, I want to connect the points by creating a straight line. Use a straight edge to connect. You can use your student ID, a ruler, a book, a folder, and then draw arrows at both of the ends. So since I don't have a student ID with me, I'm just going to use a piece of paper on all of my points. And I'm going to draw a straight line like so. Connect with arrows on each end. Voila, we're finished.